Is it still true that you're never going to get married?
I never said that.
Do you panic at the thought of marriage?
Just a little bit, yes.
Jacqueline Bisset, the woman Newsweek once hailed as the most beautiful film actress of all time, has spent more than 6 decades acting under the direction of cinema's greats, from François Truffaut to Roman Polanski, and sharing the screen with legends like Steve McQueen, Frank Sinatra, and Paul Newman. She has endured not by beauty alone, but by her ability to turn every role into an unforgettable moment, earning her place as one of the most respected actresses in the world. Yet behind every frame lies a life few have seen, a childhood marked by loss, a father who walked away when her mother fell gravely ill, deep loves that crumbled under the weight of addiction, 7 years spent as the other woman to the man she loved most, and a world-famous scene that turned her into an unwilling sex symbol, overshadowing all her efforts to prove her talent. So what truly lay beneath that beauty and talent? What tragedies, what stark contradictions have been hidden in plain sight all these years? This is the story that will upend everything you thought you knew about Jacqueline Bisset. Early life. Jacqueline Bisset was born on September 13, 1944, in the midst of the Second World War. She grew up in the English countryside of Surrey, a place where charming houses sat far apart and where loneliness could seep into one's heart more easily than the afternoon rain. From the very beginning, her life was far from peaceful. Though she was born into a family of status, her father a doctor and her mother a French lawyer, behind that polished facade were fractures that could never be mended. Her mother, Arlette Alexander, was an intelligent and strong-willed woman whose life was marked by tragedy. She gave up her career to build a home, but when she was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, everything took a devastating turn. The man she had once trusted, Max Fraser Bisset, walked away from the family, leaving Jacqueline and her mother to face fate on their own. As a little girl, Jacqueline could not fully grasp the complexities of the adult world, but she witnessed her mother transform from a strong woman into someone forced to fight alone. Her father's departure left not only a wound in her heart, but also an invisible fear of love and marriage. She understood early on that a woman could not rely on a man for happiness, that without a career and financial independence, she would be abandoned the moment she no longer fit the perfect image in a man's eyes. From then on, Jacqueline's life lost its innocence. She grew up in solitude during years that should have been filled with the carefree joys of childhood. While other children played, she worried about how to earn money to care for her mother. With no one to protect her or guide her, she was forced to grow up far too soon. An amateur photographer, a friend of her mother's, was the first to tell her, "You have no idea how beautiful you are." That sentence opened a door, and also set the first trap. Modeling became the only way she could survive. But that very job made her realize another hard truth. Beauty could be a golden ticket into the world of fame, but it could also be a dangerous snare. The fashion industry of the 1960s was rife with exploitation and scrutiny. No one cared what Jacqueline thought or wanted. They only looked at her face, her figure, and assigned her a label, a pretty flower, rather than a woman with intellect and ambition. Yet Jacqueline refused to accept that fate. She had once dreamed of becoming a professional ballerina. Ballet was the one place where she felt she could truly be herself. Not a decorative figure on magazine covers or a mannequin on the runway. But reality was brutal. Ballet training was expensive, and her family's finances were drained. Her body didn't fit the rigid standards of the time. Too tall, too full. She also saw the world of dance for what it was. Cutthroat, where only the very best survived and the rest were crushed. She could not allow herself to be one of the crushed. Forced to abandon her ballet dream, Jacqueline realized she needed another path, one that could give her the freedom she craved. Rejecting the fashion lens, she applied to the Italia Conti Academy of Theatre Arts, an institution that had trained many of Britain's finest actors, as her only escape from the label of walking vase. But even in acting, she could not escape the shadow of her beauty. People saw her face before her talent. Directors cast her not for her acting skills, but for her elegant, alluring looks. This left Jacqueline in deep conflict. She wanted to be recognized for her craft, yet she knew that without her looks, she might never have been given the chance to succeed in the first place. Her beauty took her to Hollywood faster than anyone could have imagined, but it would also become the double-edged sword of her life. For if you enter the film world because of your appearance, that world will never let you forget it. And Jacqueline would soon discover the true price of fame, a price not everyone has the strength to pay. Early career. Jacqueline knew exactly what she was walking into. She understood that if Hollywood boxed her in as just a pretty face, she would never have the chance to prove her true ability. But could she escape the gilded cage already prepared for her? The film Casino Royale, 1967, was a bitter confirmation of that fear. She was cast as Miss Goodthighs, a name that said everything about the role. During the audition, no one asked about her acting experience. They just looked as if they were appraising an object, and when she slipped into a bikini, no one hid the silent verdict in their eyes. Pretty enough for the screen. Compliments poured in, but amid all the admiration, only one person felt uneasy: Jacqueline herself. After the film's release, offers flooded in. Yet every role was the same: silent, glamorous, and empty. She began to realize that if she didn't resist now, her entire career would be filled with scenes that required no lines at all. The turning point came unexpectedly with Two for the Road, where she stood alongside Audrey Hepburn, a star who never needed to bare skin to earn respect. For the first time, Jacqueline was called an actress, not a beauty. On set, no one looked at her legs before they looked into her eyes. The role was small, but it was enough for her to understand one thing. If she wanted to be taken seriously, she had to choose her films as if choosing her battles. A year later, she accepted a role in The Detective, opposite Frank Sinatra. Before filming began, someone warned her, "Sinatra hates working with newcomers." Jacqueline didn't care. She needed the work, not the approval. What surprised her was that Sinatra was nothing like the rumors. He called her the Kid, defended her when the screenwriter gave her trouble, and when filming wrapped, he gifted her a leather-bound script, a quiet mark of respect. Of course, rumors erupted right after. A young actress working with a legend? There had to be something. People refused to believe that a beautiful woman could be championed solely for her talent. But Jacqueline didn't need to respond. She let her next film speak for her. In 1968, she appeared in Bullitt alongside Steve McQueen. Before the premiere, some still said, "Jacqueline is just the token beauty." But once the film was released, those voices quickly faded. She didn't exist to decorate the leading man. She brought the necessary quiet, a soft yet profound presence that elevated the entire storyline. her name began appearing in the press, not for a bikini scene, but for her gaze and her dialogue. Hollywood began to see her differently. 6 years later, she joined Murder on the Orient Express, sharing the screen with a cast of seasoned veterans. No one called her a screen beauty anymore. She had earned her place among true actors, not through luck, but through every role she fought for, every offer she turned down, and every look she learned to endure. Career success. Jacqueline had escaped the role of a talking vase, but just as the spotlight began to find her, Hollywood tried to pull her right back to where it had always wanted to keep her. This time, the trap was more sophisticated, wrapped in the packaging of a box office blockbuster called The Deep, 1977. She signed on hoping to make a serious adventure film. Yet from the very first days of shooting, she sensed something was wrong. Lingering shots on her body, half-joking remarks from the director about her divine profile. She told herself it was just part of the staging, but when the film hit theaters, that hope collapsed. The white soaking t-shirt she wore in a diving scene accidentally became the film's defining image, not for its narrative meaning, but for its visual impact. The movie poster was nothing but that shot. The scene was turned into a global marketing tool, sparking a wet t-shirt craze in countless tacky contests and ads. Producer Peter Guber even bluntly stated, "That t-shirt made me a rich man." Jacqueline was never consulted. She was never warned. And when she saw the scene on the big screen, she was so shocked she nearly cried. With one distorted image, everything she had worked to build could be dragged under. And she knew that if she didn't reclaim the right to define herself, she would never truly be an actress. 4 years later, she got her chance. Rich and Famous, 1981, a sharp drama about friendship, passion, and betrayal between two women, was no longer a stage for appearances. For the first time, Jacqueline stood at the emotional center of a film, not because of her body, but because of her inner life. The role demanded not just skill, but honesty, and she delivered both. For the first time, the press wrote her name without the word sexy attached, calling her a serious actress instead. This was no accident. It was the result of a battle she had fought to win. 6 years later, in Napoleon and Josephine. A love story. 1987. Jacqueline stepped into the complex historical role of Josephine, the only woman who ever made Napoleon's heart falter. This time, there were no body close-ups, only scenes of dialogue, conflict, and strategy. Jacqueline played them so brilliantly, she earned a Golden Globe nomination. Once again, she proved there was no genre she couldn't step into, if given the chance. By then, Jacqueline no longer needed to prove herself. She had worked with some of the world's most respected directors: Truffaut, Polanski, Huston, Cukor. She was chosen by them not for her looks, but for her craft. She had shared the screen with legends like Paul Newman, Anthony Quinn, and Jean-Paul Belmondo. In any country, in any film industry, she left her mark, without showiness, without scandal, simply through serious, steady work. Yet Hollywood remained curious. How could a woman so beautiful, so accomplished, never have married? The answer wasn't on the red carpet. It lay somewhere much deeper. And you will understand why in the next chapter. Personal life and tragedy. Hollywood thrives on grand romances, million-dollar weddings, and divorces so loud they drown out box office numbers. But in a world where love often comes with a media contract, Jacqueline Bisset chose a different path. She has never married. No wedding dress, no aisle, no vows under a flash of cameras. Through decades in front of the lens, this remains one of the most puzzling things about her. How could a woman so beautiful, so famous, so adored by millions, never once say yes to marriage? Jacqueline's answer has never been a defensive game. "I'm too independent to get married," she said plainly. For her, marriage was not the destination of love, but the beginning of unspoken demands, accepting someone's habits, temperament, and even the darker sides love might never have revealed. You love someone for the part of themselves they let you see, but you marry them, which means you live with all the parts they've never willingly shown. And I'm not sure I'd have the patience to do that every day. Jacqueline also never saw children as a reason to hold on to a relationship. For her, true stability can only exist when it is built from within, not dependent on titles, obligations, or expectations. Happiness, if it exists, must be something you create for yourself. No one can hand it to you. No one can keep it safe for you forever. Though she has never called anyone husband, Jacqueline Bisset has not lacked men who entered her life. Each was different, some loud, some fleeting, some only walking with her for part of the journey. But there was one man who stayed the longest, the one she could never truly forget, yet still had to choose to leave. Stay until the end to find out who he was. Among all the men who passed through Jacqueline's life, Michael Sarrazin's name lingers the longest. They lived together for nearly 7 years, a span that outlasted any of her other relationships, both in emotional depth and in the rhythms of daily life. They met in the late 1960s when both were rising young stars in Hollywood. Sarrazin had a roguish charm, tousled hair, a half smile, the kind of man who could melt your guard but was impossible to hold on to. Jacqueline, in her 20s, was sharp enough to recognize the dangerous allure, yet honest enough not to fool herself about it. One summer evening in 1969, they sat on a hotel balcony in Paris after a press event. Under the soft yellow light, Michael slowly drew on his cigarette, while Jacqueline gently swirled her wine. "Should we get married?" he asked suddenly, with that half smile. She looked at him and simply replied, "I love you, but I'm afraid of being tied down." Jacqueline would later say, "I'm too independent to get married. I don't think I could live with someone's bad habits every single day for the rest of my life." For her, love was a choice renewed each morning. No rings, no paperwork, no chains. And Michael had once agreed to that. But no one told them that what isn't bound can also be broken more easily. Their love had everything: passion, intimacy, mornings bathed in misty light. But over time, their differences surfaced. Sarrazin, though charming and intelligent, valued his freedom so deeply that even patience seemed like too much to bear. Jacqueline, despite claiming she didn't want to be possessed, was still a deeply feeling woman, one who needed more stability than a love suspended in the air. "I have to support someone," she once said. "My instinct is to want to be with a man." But that support, she knew, had to be for someone who could keep himself steady. Later, in a rare interview, she revealed, "The 2 longest relationships of my life both ended because of alcohol. Michael was one of them. There was no dramatic fight, no tearful goodbye. Just one day, she realized she was in love with a man slowly drifting away from reason, and she chose to walk away before she was pulled under with him. And through everything that happened, she still remembers his skin." "I'm drawn to men with beautiful skin. Jacqueline admitted. Touching someone is also touching through their skin. A detail that might seem trivial, but one that speaks volumes about her sensitivity. And the way she loves, with every sense she has. Michael Sarrazin never became her husband. But in the decades that followed, no one else lived beside Jacqueline as long as he did. One of Jacqueline's briefest yet most profound romances was with François Truffaut. They met while working together on a project Truffaut was directing, for which he personally chose her. Not for her beauty, but for her eyes. He believed she could convey the silences and sorrows he always sought in his films. Truffaut didn't flirt. He listened. He asked questions that weren't easy to answer. And Jacqueline, used to Hollywood men who rushed everything, fell silent for a long time after he once said, "I don't need a leading lady. I need someone real." Their relationship didn't last long, just long enough for Jacqueline to understand that sometimes the strongest connection isn't love, it's respect and silence at the right moment. When Truffaut died in 1984, she never spoke of him publicly. But in a later interview, when asked which man had left her with the deepest sense of longing, Jacqueline simply replied, "Not all short affairs are shallow." And perhaps that answer was enough. Her list of lovers is far from over. And the next name? None other than Alexander Godunov. Jacqueline first met Godunov in 1981 at a party in New York. The man who had defected from the Bolshoi to live the life of a free artist in America. They fell in love amid the glitter of high society and the shared fire of artistic ambition. From the start, they recognized a kinship in each other. Wandering artists, always hungry to express emotion. Godunov, with the physique of a gold medal-winning Moscow dancer who later chose to act, fascinated Jacqueline. But that same free-spirited nature also made him unstable. Jacqueline maintained her emotional steadiness. He slowly lost his own balance as he slipped too deeply into alcohol and career disappointments. In a later interview, Jacqueline confessed, "The two longest relationships of my life both ended because of alcohol, and Godunov was one of them." Their relationship lasted over 6 years, but they never formally broke up. No scandal, no media drama. In the end, Jacqueline realized she couldn't hold on to a man who couldn't hold on to himself, and she walked away. Years later, when Godunov died, Jacqueline went to his first wife, Lyudmila Vlasova, and cried in her arms, finally understanding. Godunov had truly only ever loved his wife. They had not been lovers in the end, but Jacqueline knew she was the last witness to his life's story. Of all the men who ever passed through Jacqueline Bisset's life, there was only one about whom she openly admitted. This was the deepest love, and also the wound that never fully healed. That man was Marcello Mastroianni. They were together for nearly 7 years. At the time, both were famous, both busy, and both knew this relationship would never be easy. Mastroianni had not divorced, though he and his wife had long lived apart. Jacqueline entered his life as a partner without a title. She accepted that for a long time, until she realized she was slowly losing herself. She once said bluntly, "I can't be the other woman forever." It wasn't anger. It was a boundary she had to draw to protect her self-respect. She never blamed him. She even said he was the man who made her cry the most, yet she never regretted loving him. They parted in silence with no scandal, no harsh words. But she never forgot. It was a relationship that could never truly end. because it had never truly begun in its entirety. And it was one of the rare times Jacqueline admitted that, had things been different, she might have chosen marriage. Though she never married and had no biological children, Jacqueline Bisset once embraced the role of stepmother. The men she lived with, including Michael Sarrazin and Emine Bostepe, had children from previous relationships. Without any legal bond, Jacqueline still spent time caring for their children, playing a motherly role during the years they lived together. She once said she had no regrets about not having children of her own, but that didn't mean she lacked maternal instincts. She loved the children of the men she was with, yet she also knew marriage and motherhood were not the paths she wanted to take. Despite being considered one of Hollywood's most elegant screen legends, Jacqueline Bisset has not been entirely free from controversy. One of the most talked about and even notorious moments came at the 2014 Golden Globe Awards. At 69, Jacqueline unexpectedly won the award for Best Supporting Actress for her role in the TV miniseries Dancing on the Edge. It was the first Golden Globe of her career, a moment that should have been a fitting tribute to a woman who had dedicated decades to film. But instead of delivering a strong, heartfelt speech, the moment became one of the strangest award presentations in Golden Globe history. When her name was announced, Jacqueline walked to the stage, visibly moved, yet slightly disoriented. Upon taking the microphone, she paused for several seconds, as if trying to gather her thoughts. Instead of a concise statement, her speech became scattered, hesitant, and puzzlingly long. She repeated her thanks multiple times, shifted topics abruptly, and paused awkwardly between sentences. The camera cut to the audience, capturing reactions of surprise and confusion. Leonardo DiCaprio raised his eyebrows. Julia Roberts managed a polite but strained smile, and the shot lingered on Bradley Cooper, who appeared to be trying to mask his own discomfort. As soon as the broadcast ended, social media exploded with speculation. Many wondered, had Jacqueline Bisset been drinking before taking the stage? On Twitter, sarcastic comments poured in. Jacqueline Bisset is speaking, but I'm not sure she knows what she's saying. That speech is basically a perfect drunk 2 a.m. phone call. Can someone just turn off the mic? Now I'm as confused as she is. The Guardian called it one of the most awkward moments in Golden Globe history, while Time magazine ranked it among the strangest moments in Golden Globe history. So, was Jacqueline Bisset actually drunk? The very next day, she flatly denied the rumors in an interview. I didn't drink before going on stage. I was just overwhelmed. I'd been waiting for that moment for 47 years. She explained that she was completely caught off guard by the win, having grown used to being overlooked by Hollywood during award season. When she stepped on stage, she was so flooded with emotion that she couldn't control her thoughts. Even so, the event remains a memorable mark in Jacqueline's career, not only because it kept audiences talking for years, but because it showed something undeniable. Even a seasoned screen legend can lose composure in certain moments. Legacy and influence. Jacqueline Bisset is not just a movie star. She is a trailblazer. In the 1980s, when pay inequality between men and women was still rampant, she became one of the first actresses to earn over $1 million for a single role, a historic milestone for women in the film industry. She has been honored worldwide, from Hollywood to Paris, where she was awarded the Légion d'honneur for her contributions to the arts. Over a career spanning more than 20 countries, she has worked with some of the greatest directors, defining the image of a global artist, independent, enduring, and uncompromising. Even without marrying or having children, she left her mark as the godmother of Angelina Jolie and as an inspiration to an entire generation of women determined to create art on their own terms. Current life. At 80, Jacqueline Bisset has not chosen a quiet life or withdrawn from the entertainment world. She continues to appear on screen, proving that her passion for the arts has never left her. In 2022, she starred in Lauren and Rose, playing a veteran actress with a complex soul, a role that mirrors her own career and life. That same year, she was honored at the Coronado Island Film Festival with the Cultural Icon Award, recognizing her outstanding contributions over more than 6 decades in cinema. Not only has she maintained her on-screen appeal, but Jacqueline Bisset also continues to embody timeless elegance and refined grace, becoming a symbol of ageless sophistication. She has not chased Hollywood's youth-obsessed standards, nor relied on cosmetic surgery, instead allowing time to shape the beauty of a woman who has lived fully and freely. Beyond her career, she remains active in charitable work. She devotes time to supporting cancer research, protecting children, and advocating for animal rights, staying true to her humanitarian spirit and compassion. For Jacqueline, life is not only about the spotlight, but also about the values she wishes to leave for the next generation. In February 2025, Jacqueline Bisset sparked a wave of debate with her comments on the Me Too movement. In a candid interview, she said she felt very little sympathy for many of the stories within the movement. According to her, women need to be careful in how they behave and dress to avoid becoming targets of sexual harassment. She also stated that throughout her career, she had never encountered such situations, partly because she stayed away from sensitive scenarios and was often protected by male colleagues. Her words immediately drew a storm of backlash. Many criticized her for lacking empathy, even accusing her of victim blaming, an argument that survivors of the #MeToo movement have repeatedly challenged. What made Jacqueline's statement particularly controversial was the clear conflict between her remarks and her own past. She had risen to global fame in part through sensual roles, daring photo shoots, and an unspoken status as a sex symbol of 1970s Hollywood. Her legendary wet t-shirt scene in The Deep, 1977, had become an iconic image, a form of marketing she never asked for, but that undeniably boosted her career. So how could a woman who once stood in the glare of such sensual imagery now advise younger generations to dress carefully to avoid harm? Some call it hypocrisy. Others see it as the voice of a different generation, one in which women survived by adapting rather than openly fighting back. Whether you agree or disagree, there is no denying that Jacqueline Bisset has never been afraid to speak her mind, even knowing it would not please the majority. Perhaps, as she once said herself, "I don't live to please anyone. I just want to keep myself whole." What do you think of Jacqueline Bisset's approach to sensitive issues like Me Too? Is it the necessary candor of an older generation, or an outdated view that's hard to accept today? Jacqueline Bisset chose a life without ties. No husband, no children, no man who truly kept her heart. But is that strength? Or simply loneliness dressed in elegance? Did she truly never need marriage, or had she simply never found someone worthy? What do you think? Can a woman truly be happy without a family? Or is it just a way of comforting oneself? Could her parents' marriage have been the costly lesson that directly shaped her choice? Share your thoughts in the comments below and let us know where you stand. Hit like and subscribe so you won't miss more shocking stories about Hollywood legends.